Welcome to the Growth League podcast, where we interview business owners who have experienced quantum leap growth in their business. In each episode, we're going to dive deep into our guests' firsthand experience about what it was like 90 days before and 90 days after that point when their business started experiencing massive growth. Welcome. Thanks for being on the show, Matthew. I really appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure.
Awesome. So our community here is made up of a bunch of, it's kind of split down the middle. A lot of business owners, entrepreneurs in across a large variety of different industries, as well as marketers, marketing managers, directors of marketing. And so what I like to do is dig into the topics of growth, obviously, and that can be in all areas. So culture being a part of that growth, or big moments, maybe a big client, whatever that may be. But then also taking a look at how marketing and how digital marketing played a role, if it did at all, in that growth journey. But what I want to do first is have you bring us all the way back to sort of the origin of Reach. How did it start? Please share.
Yeah, it actually, it started originally as kind of a spin-off from Calgary Foreign Exchange. And what it was is Calgary Foreign Exchange was trying to sell a new kind of FX product, where traditionally they've been around for 30 years, but really traditional, just corporate FX. I have I'm an oil company in Calgary and I need to pay this payroll in India, or pay for this huge piece of equipment from China, and they're basically moving the funds just through like wire transfer. And they had come across a new kind of FX solution that allows e-commerce merchants to easily price in local currency and eliminate all the risk. Basically, like doing micro FX of locking in at checkout. And so the CEO, Sam, had actually approached me because I was working at another large global processor. And he was basically trying to sell this FX solution to the merchants of that company at that time. And we was going, I was like, there's the way you're looking at the way you're trying to sell it, it's not going to work that way. With the way that the technical solution works and the different requirements for merchant accounts and how the money flows, you can't just integrate this FX solution, and you have to do X, Y, Z. And as we started looking at that, we realized there was this giant gap in the market. And from there, this entire product and Reach was kind of grown for him. But it was originally just the FX, but then it came into doing local processing in a much better way, as we saw gaps. And that was kind of how it started. Mm-hmm.
How critical to merchant profitability, business profitability is this ability to have seamless sort of cross-border exchange, making it really localized is what you guys hang your hat on. Tell me about where that plays into the overall proposition.
Well, it's huge. When I've been in global payments for a while now, and I remember when I first started, it was the whole job with working with these e-commerce retailers and merchants was convincing the customer that it's okay to buy cross-border, that don't worry, the product's going to get there, and it was all about building trust. Now there's been a complete shift in the market where if someone goes on Instagram or whatever marketing it is, when they come to there, they expect personalization. They expect that you're going to service them, even though that merchant probably, or that retailer isn't even they're targeting a lookalike audience and not necessarily someone in Slovenia, right? It's just something that goes out there. So nowadays, so people are coming and clicking on the website, expecting personalization, expecting, that you're going to actually service them. And they will absolutely buy from you as long as you don't have huge friction points.
Right.
And not having in the customer's local currency, not offering local payment methods, not knowing what the duty and tax is going to be, all kinds of shipping delays, how you communicate to them, translation, everything is incredibly important. And if you eliminate that friction, you're going to absolutely capitalize on cross-border. Where you look at most merchants' growth, is with COVID, there's been huge growth domestically, but when you look at cross border, that's even double digits than just normal e-commerce.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's amazing us as online consumers. If there is any interruption to what we to a seamless user experience, our confidence just plummets, right? And so for me, if I was to go onto a website of a retailer that's using Reach's platform, you're saying that essentially everything I see will be applicable to me locally. So currency. What else demonstrates the personalization or the localization?
Right. So it goes into several layers, but ultimately, as you come on to there, you're going to always see it in the local currency and specific to a pricing strategy.
Right.
There are different markets where you say within Europe, it's common to have like the VAT and the taxes included into the product pricing. And because if they see that at checkout, sometimes you'll get a much lower conversion rate. So it's all about not just seeing in the local currency, but market specific pricing that's going to allow for the best customer experience, right? And whether it's rounded to the nearest dollar in some markets or rounded to 99 or whatever it is, there's all types of best practices per market that you're really going to go in. So it's not just that local currency, it's really going into that best practice,
Gotcha.
right? And then it is going to be able to see when they go in, in some markets, what are those taxes and any types of, if there's any duty on top of it, whatever thing through the checkout, actually calculating that, making sure that that product can actually be shipped there. There's a lot of times where depending on what country they're coming from, there could be certain product restrictions. So it's making sure that there's no surprises at the checkout. So they're only seeing the relevant pricing and the products that are available to that customer.
Gotcha.
Then going into the actual checkout and seeing the actual relevant payment methods
Right.
that are going to be there, right? And probably as like a Canadian customer, I'm sure you'll see sometimes like you look on these US websites and they're advertising like Afterpay or this buy now pay laters or Affirm, right? And you say, oh, this is great. I want to pay. Affirm's offering all these installments. It's great. But then you actually go there in the checkout and you can Canadian customers can't actually check out with Affirm.
Right.
So marketing them and advertising them something that they go to checkout and get declined is a horrible process, right? Yeah. So then it's making sure that advertising and the payment methods are all completely localized.
Interesting. And does your platform sync up with the available inventory of that retailer as well? So it won't show unless it's not the available inventory, but the available inventory that can be distributed to where I live. Right. It may show up different for someone in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And so what will happen is what we do is also depending on if you're like cosmetic, depending on what you're selling, there is so many different regulations of what you can sell and what you can't sell, right? Like you could sell a watch, but then you have like a alligator leather band, and that can't go into Australia. So it's like going in before and doing a kind of compliance check to make sure that the retailers don't get fined and are doing everything properly.
Gotcha. So for those, there's a few people that listen to our podcast that may not be aware of what the capital raise scene in the Bay Area looks like, and how this has become just a balloon thing over the last several decades. And give us some context in terms of how big that game is in the Bay Area, and why is Reach a little bit different in terms of how they first set up and started to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been crazy in the Bay Area, and nowadays I don't even think it's just in the Bay Area. It's almost kind of everywhere. But it's crazy. It is every single day I see a friend or just another news article pop up, and it's, oh, now this round and they're worth X, and it's like they're worth $1 billion now, and then 6 months later they do another round and now they're worth $3 billion. I was like, how in 6 months did they raise? Are they worth it? And they come with these valuations, which I don't frankly understand of how they are, because it's not like true market. It's just whatever. But it is crazy, and it seems about most people care about revenue and the next round of funding versus actually what the real business is. But it is it's everywhere in the market.
Yeah.
And we're basically kind of like the anti-Silicon Valley a little bit, where we've had a lot of opportunities to take on funding and we've decided not to, where we basically it's been self-funded since the start.
Tell me more about that.
You know, it was just a decision that we made. Like the previous company that I came from, I can speak personally to this, was, I was brought in when the private equity purchased it, and they basically had a 3-year plan and to get out. And it was horrible in terms of culture, in terms of building a business and a product. And because all they cared about was the bottom line, and they would do anything to make that bottom line look better just to sell it off. And I mean, they made a huge profit, but it really left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
And I think that was from Sam, the CEO, and everyone else just really didn't want to give up control, and we wanted to do it our own way and not have to, be someone else's, have to just have another boss and not control the business.
So in your industry, with the type of service you guys offer, how do you circumvent that more traditional route to growth and grow a little bit more organically? Can you tell us about the story of from inception? What were some key strategic moves that you guys did to start to hit that upswing in growth?
Right. So I think one of the key things with our growth is when you look at it, especially global payments, we can cover, and our model can cover all areas, from B2B to digital to travel to like online retail. And with being such a small budget and really being bootstrapped, we went in to for online retail, and we went very, very specific, very niche, and very, very deep. And that enabled us to get some movement and just in that focus. And then you get a couple, big retailers with a good name, and then you're able to start that out. And I think it also helped with, we went so niche where it was the pain that we were solving was huge. So that enabled us, as we were growing, there was a lot of pitfalls. There was a lot of, we weren't perfect by any means, but a lot of those pitfalls, the pain that we, the pain that we solved far outweighed all of our pitfalls. Right. And not having a full platform, where I think I see, and that's a good example of a lot of these startups that take a lot of funding. They have to have X revenue very fast. So they have to go kind of very wide starting out. Right. And then your product has to kind of be perfect, and you start getting a lot of dilution, where it's very hard, but because you have to get X growth by this one. And because we were just bootstrapped, we could start with a very, very niche and then grow out from there. And it didn't matter that we hadn't have to have 300 merchants and X revenue by this time. It was more about getting the product right, getting everything, fulfilling our promise to the merchants, and growing organically from there.
Right. And you could do it at your own pace, at your own schedule, right? Because you weren't under the mandate of those that gave the money.
Yeah. I mean, we still had to do payroll and stuff, which wasn't easy at times, but yes, Hey,
if you're not struggling to make payroll every once in a while, then you're not playing the game right.
Yeah.
So you built something worth scaling, and then scaled from there, right? And what was the original niche? I'm not sure if you mentioned that.
It was we just went into online retail. Basically, someone's selling a physical product and shipping it cross-border.
Okay, got you. Was there a moment in time? I mean, growth is, as we talked about before, it's kind of cyclical, or ups and downs. But was there a moment of time that sticks out to you where it was a big win and it sort of catapulted you to a next level of trajectory growth?
We did have several big wins, but I would say that the biggest one where we saw was all of a sudden we kept on getting these leads coming in, and we're like, what is going on? And it was like a lot of these kind of startup kind of founders in these Facebook groups and different groups started talking about us. Right. Or I would get some really well brands come in, and I was like, well, how did you find out about us? And oh, well, we hired a consultant to see what this is, and they recommended you as one of the 3 recommendations. And I'd never even spoken to that consultant. So it was more about like, we were all of a sudden, I was like, we're now known as someone that's actually feeling these pains, and we're getting, word around the market.
Hmm.
And then that was kind of when you started seeing, okay, we really got something, and this is some real growth here.
Right. So your number one, I'd imagine your number one lever to growth is getting, getting set up with good retailer and merchant partnerships. What defines sort of the perfect partner merchant for you guys that would really thrive with the platform?
Usually it's like, we can help everyone, right? But it usually is the retailer that has a large enough international volume where they really feel the pain. If you're just starting to do international and stuff, and you're getting a couple orders a month, it's, yes, we can help, but it's not like, it's something like you already have this international traffic, you already have kind of this demand, but you're not capitalizing on it, you're not optimizing it. And that's really when it makes sense to partner with us, and we can work together on the strategy, the integration, and then really execute on that.
All different sizes of merchants, retailers, as long as they have a strong international component to their sales.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
What have you guys done from a marketing or a digital marketing standpoint that has really worked to attract and acquire new merchant or retailer partners? And where are some areas that you guys are still, in your opinion, missing the boat or struggling?
What we've done with some of the digital marketing is, developing several like case studies and really putting that out there. I think any type of those types of validation and also explaining what we do and how we do it, it has been a great impact, right? So that's been definitely a positive. Where we definitely need help is just on brand and being able to, what we do is so, the issue that we always face is there's all these, a lot of marketing things about, oh, global is easy, and here's like an easy button. But the truth is global is extremely complex and complicated. And depending on what you're doing in the merchant and what markets you're going to, it's very layered. And to be able to market that and to be able to actually tell that truthfully on a website or something coming on there has always been very difficult. So what we really need to do is, because once we get down with someone and we can go on a demo and we can do and explain, like these lights go on and we're a no-brainer, because they look at how you're doing it now versus how you're doing it. But most people don't even understand if they're even doing it wrong, because they don't, the education level on really doing great global e-commerce is not widely known. There's not too many really good experts out there.
Right. So if you, like a lot of businesses and a lot of business owners that are on this podcast and are listening, if you have the opportunity to get face-to-face, kneecap to kneecap through a demo or some more intimate experience with the merchant, you're batting 100% or close to that, right? It's sort of that initial awareness, understanding, and engagement phases of the funnel that is causing some issue. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
How long has that been? I mean, that burdens a lot of us. But how long has that been a material challenge for you guys?
It's now been, it's always been a challenge from the beginning, but I think from where we started to, like, most people always hitting up, or the sales team had no idea who Reach was, and it was more about just hitting up their pain points and explaining there's a better way and building that on. And then it was always through partners and referrals. Right. So that was easier. So they were like, someone from a trusted was coming in. Now that we're getting enough scale and we're actually getting people that are just coming to the website, that are coming here, that aren't from our direct outreach or from a referral, it's becoming much more like of a blaring issue of, because they're coming on and not being able to be convinced, or not being able to see what the value is or what it is.
Right.
And before that, we didn't even have people coming to the website, right? The only reason they would come to the website is because, again, they referred or
Mm-hmm.
we sent them a direct email or a call saying, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what we can do to help.
Okay. Gotcha. So if a merchant or retailer that does a lot of international business, so they meet the criteria of who a good partner would be, what are you hoping that they do when they get to the site? I imagine because there's an apply now form. What happens after that? So the form gets filled out. Talk to me about the flow of how you engage with these folks after that.
Yeah, so typically immediately they'll come in and we'll have like automatic responses going out of but then it's usually we have like SDRs that work about qualifying and setting up meetings and stuff. So they'll actually look at that the merchant and they go to the website, see if they're a good qualified, what their web traffic is, what are they doing localization now, what's going on.
Right.
And then usually from there, then we'll reply back with very specific pain points or anything to really get them. And with the goal of being, if they're qualified, get them on a demo.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not really qualified or if they're too small or we don't think they're like a fit or product, we'll usually put them on like a newsletter or, right, something put into like a drip system.
Right. And then hopefully they come back to you with a little bit more understanding of the pain you alleviate. That's
right.
Okay.
Or maybe like when they're, if they come back when they're larger or
right,
whatever it is.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. With a partner that has gone through all the gauntlet of the application, making sure they meet criteria, how long does getting set up typically take with a new merchant? I know it probably depends on how much business they're doing, but what does onboarding look like, and how long does that take?
It really is merchant to merchant.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing is the technical integrations.
Right.
So if they're on like a platform like a Shopify or Magento or Salesforce Commerce Cloud, like that's usually pretty straightforward within a couple of days to a couple of weeks.
Right.
To like if they're on a really large retailer or merchant that is on a custom website where that could take 3 months, 4
right.
months.
The for you guys, obviously there's a lot of stuff to be doing on a day-to-day now and fulfilling the strategy that's been set out in place, but is there a mountain in the distance that you guys all have your eyes set on? Like what's the pie in the sky sort of growth goal in terms of what you'll be doing, maybe different markets that you're in, different product launches? Tell me about the vision of the future.
Yeah, so where we see it now is a very exciting time, is because we've started so niche within that, but now it's looking and putting our heads up and say, okay, we still have a ton to do within online retail, and that's going to be always a focus. Right. But then moving on to so many different areas of different industries, a little bit of working with marketplaces or B2B or, going into digital. So really going out and expanding and just being more of like a true, like if you're doing anything cross-border, that you look upon reach, regardless of what you're doing, right? Okay,
so everything is going to boil down to cross-border, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Cross-border is our thing. It's basically, we allow merchants that if you're accepting a payment, if you want to, no matter where you are, where the customer is, if you want to accept a payment, we're the best way to do that.
Got you. So what are some other examples of applications where this would be relevant? So obviously online, buying goods, like what you're doing now, but what are some different applications that you're talking about?
Right. So like one thing is huge, especially that's been B2B is primarily like checks and bank wires and stuff, which is incredibly outdated. And usually a lot of times, like you have like a US company, even to Canada, right? They're invoicing in US dollars. And then the Canadian customers got to go to to their bank or some other provider that's not even connected to their transaction, complete the FX, and it's all, none of it's automated. It's always very slow and they're not getting the best rates. So, and a lot of times now people really want to pay with credit cards. People want to do digital. A lot of the suppliers, the buyers want to do that, And so really enabling that and having it be bringing e-commerce to the B2B world,
Right.
where instead of they can, that US customer merchant can still invoice in US dollars, but just from a simple click, that customer can then see, okay, here's the actual exchange rate, and it's a very, very attractive exchange rate to do in Canadian dollars. They could choose to pay with bank transfer, and it's all automatic online. They can do with credit cards, they could do with like a direct debit, whatever they want to do.
Gotcha.
It's basically seamless. It doesn't matter where the customer is located.
Right.
Right. We're going to be localized. So they can send that invoice out to a Canadian customer, Australian customer, customer in Brazil. It's all going to be 100% localized.
Gotcha. One of the questions that I had jotted down here before our call was, you're chief strategy officer for Reach, and a lot of marketing directors and business owners struggle with narrowing the gap between great strategy and great execution. What do you think are some critical components for executing upon growth that can narrow that gap between theoretical strategy and actually getting it done?
I like to get things out there.
Right.
Waiting and trying to get it perfect, because I've had so many experiences where you wait an extra 6 months or a year to get this product this way, and I've never had one that didn't have problems, that didn't have something. So I'd rather have it do a lot quicker and learn from it and start to move it and actually get some real world experience as well. One thing that in my past, like especially we started, maybe we, as I look back, maybe went out with some new things a little too quick, but I really would say like our product was forged by fire in the fact of like it was out there, tested, and then got merchant feedback immediately. Instead of us going down some other direction, it was really saying, okay, there's no assumptions. This is true as what's happening. And we were able to iterate as we moved it on. Now you have to get like merchants and stuff that are willing to play that. So it was really finding really good partners to help you go through that phase. And then go quicker than slow.
When you're trying to iterate based on the feedback of your customer, were you straight up honest with them and saying, hey guys, we're in some form of beta or something like that, or how did that go? Do you bring them into the process with you, or was it kind of just like, we're on the market now, let's see what they say, and then iterate behind closed doors?
Well, the way a lot of this time went was when the product was first getting developed and we didn't have like a whole picture of exactly what Reach was. We had ideas and we had a lot of specific functionality, but then it was finding large, like a really good prospects and merchants. And you would go in and usually they would need something that was custom. Right. Now, and normally it's a very, very bad strategy to pick a specific prospect or something and just make something custom for them. But it was like, you had to really work hard. We had to really work hard to get these first merchants to find out what they needed, that we needed to build custom from them was something that we could also sell to the entire market. So we went with them knowing that, okay, we're going to build this for you and we're going to build this. And it was kind of custom where they were willing to play the game, knowing that we were starting from scratch and that we're going to be doing this. And so they were really able to learn with it, but we were confident enough that what the pain that they had was something that a lot of merchants had that pain. So we were able to, so we didn't want to do any custom builds specific to them that was only doing this, because
I see
it was only really custom to it we thought was marketable. So we would turn down a lot of saying, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. Oh, what you need, we think the market needs. So we're going to work with you to build this and make it. So, and that was really helpful. And definitely being bootstrapped is you couldn't just go down and build it without having revenue come in. So it was nice that we were able to build this in, get revenue from it, and then make our product that much better.
Gotcha. As you go forward towards this vision that you described a few minutes earlier, about looking for different application of the same cross-border functionality in the platform that you guys have created, what do you think that the biggest 1, 2, 3 obstacles are going to be, or challenges are going to be to be able to fulfill that vision? Is it competitive? Is it consumer behavior? What are the biggest challenges you think to realizing this vision of getting broader?
I think some of the challenges are more like internal as we go from just being always just so bootstrapped and like such a small core team of people who just knew it front and back, right? And now we're doubling size. Now we're looking to hire another 100 people and all this stuff. And like, how do you scale that properly? How do you make sure that our culture and everything remains the same and we still fulfill that promise to the merchants? I see as being one of the most difficult, because I think the timing is for just the world is going to be more global. The world is being more digital. Timing is great, and there's competitors all over, but it's very hard I don't think any of them are in the next 3 or 4 years is going to take complete market share. It's so big. So I'm not too concerned there. It's more about us executing and really going in and scaling properly.
Gotcha. And I guess that's where part of the brand that you were talking about and improvement of the brand is going to help, because you want to be known for cross-border, right? When people say that, your reach is the group. You talked about doubling or getting some, new staff as you grow. Do you have a good number of sort of day one ambassadors of reach that are going to be able to help communicate that where we came from vision and leverage that as going forward?
We're starting to, it was kind of like, as the thing is just, as soon as like, it especially was different with COVID, we're still not, I mean, we have offices in the UK and in the US and Canada and Australia and some other kind of employees everywhere. But now it was never really of a thought, because we were always I was always, no matter what, I was talking to someone at the company at least a couple times a day, going even on Zooms, on Slack, whatever it is. Now there's several people that I've never met, and there's also even more people I've never even talked to or Slack to. So now we're like, honestly, it's become more of a realization, like, we got to get this going and keep that same culture, which we're just figuring out now, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a big topic. It's critical for growth, obviously. Well, this has been great. I mean, between this conversation and kind of a prep one we had a few weeks ago, I've become very much impressed with the fact that you eluded the trap that is, getting a seed round and multiple seed rounds and doing it bootstrap, being committed to a vision, wanting to be known for a thing, and then replicating from there. I think these are all critical sort of business fundamentals, and a lot of our audience can take a lot of value from it. I always like to end with this, Matthew, and I'm not sure if this applies to you or not, but are you a guy that has any form of routine that you commit to on a day-to-day basis, morning, afternoon, or night, or you just kind of wing it?
No, I have a pretty rigid morning schedule that I stick to.
Can you tell us about it?
Well, yeah, it's I wake up usually around like 4:30 a.m., do some yoga, some breath work, some meditation. I usually write in a journal, and then I'll have just like a coffee, and then I'll usually read some type of industry or anything that I think is going to be helpful to business, whatever. So it's usually, it's a good 3.5 hours before I start work that I usually go through this every day.
That's awesome. Is there anything top of mind that you're grateful for these days?
Oh, my family. I'm grateful for so much, right? It is, my family, the coworkers, work, everything. I mean, that we're healthy, that, everyone at Reach is healthy. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I hope it stays that way. And thank you so much for giving us a bit of a look behind the curtain at Reach. And I'm certainly going to be an advocate as much as I can. So I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Take care, Matthew.